Hello and welcome back to the course on Tableau. In the previous tutorial, we combined two datasets using a cross-database join. The first dataset came from an Excel file, the second one came from a CSV file, and now we've got a new dataset with the population column available to us. So let's go ahead and proceed back to our cluster analysis and refine it and see if this population column can make a difference. So there we go, that's our cluster analysis. I'm going to duplicate this sheet. And now we're going to see how we can refine this analysis. Now, all we need to do is we need to right-click clusters and select edit clusters. So we don't even have to add this new column population into our visualization. We don't need to actually see it for it to be included in the cluster analysis. All we need to do is drag population into the list of variables for our clusters. Click it here. And as you can see right away, now we have a different picture. Now, based on these three variables, if you think about it, it's like a three-dimensional modeling exercise that's happening in the background where Tableau is taking these three variables, marketing, spend, revenue, and population, and it's looking at those three variables. It's understanding how to best group these observations into clusters based on their proximity, and then is just translating the result into colors on our two-dimensional chart. So basically we could keep putting in more variables in here. Same would happen. Tableau would group them in a multi-dimensional space. It could be a 5-dimensional, 10-dimensional space. So it's just basically performing some mathematical calculations to understand what's the best way to create groups of proximity of these observations, and then it's painting them for us here in colors on our two-dimensional visualization, so it's just easier for us to assess. So that's what's happening in the background, and now let's have a look at the analytics that now we can perform. As you can see, a very different picture. Before we had two groups, and these elements were part of this bottom group over here. Now this bottom group is on its own. Then you've got this yellow group, which kind of overlaps with the blue. So even though for us they overlap, these two groups, they overlap, some of the orange, yellow dots are above the blue and some of the blue are below the yellow. In reality, this is because we don't see that third variable, the population, and we'll have a look at a couple examples just now of that. So before we do that, what I'm going to change is the actual representation of the visualization. So let's go to shape and change this from a circle to a filled circle. And let's increase the size, maybe something like that. And now in color, let's set some transparency. So somewhere like that, so we can actually better see what's going on. And now let's take population and we'll just put it into detail so that it comes up when we look at the pop-up. So let's start with this bottom set of observations. So here you'll see that population is about 100,000, 102, 107,000, 108, 106, 103,000, 105, 109, 109,000. So around those numbers. Now let's have a look at these. Here population is 126,000, 132, 147, 128, 140, and so on. So in these orange dots, the population is higher. Now let's look at the blue dots. Blue dots, population is 200, 171 here, 197, 200 here, 213. So as you can see, the population in the blue dots is even higher than orange, and that is how they're distinct. So even though they're close here, they're quite proximity is high, so they're close to each other, but at the same time they differ in a variable that we don't see on this visualization, which is population. And that is how Tableau has assessed that there is actually three groups here. So the blue, the yellow, and the red. And that is a great step for us. So first of all, the fact that this group is separate kind of confirms our thinking that population does affect revenue. So all of these cities, they have a population of about 100, so under 110,000 people, and therefore maybe the marketing efforts are not yielding any additional results. Whereas these cities, they have greater populations, and therefore the marketing efforts are actually maybe there is a correlation that why the marketing efforts are giving us results. So now that we have these separate groups, how do we enhance our analysis? So yes, that's a great start, but apart from us visually seeing that the groups are different, what are the differences in the trends? And in order to look at the trends, we're going to go to the analytics pane again. And again, we haven't spoken about trend lines in this course. This is a more advanced topic. It's something for the advanced course on Tableau. And if you want to learn more about trend lines, you're definitely welcome to check out my advanced course. But we'll have a quick sneak peek into trend lines right now. So all we need to do is take the trend line and just drag it onto the chart. We're going to a linear trend line, so we can just drag it onto a chart. It will still create a linear trend line for us. And what we can see here are the 3 trend lines for these 3 clusters. So what you can see for the red line, for instance, if you hover over it, you'll see that the revenue, so the formula is at the very top. It says that the revenue is 0.94 times marketing spend plus 16,943. So basically what we're interested in here is this first bit, so the slope, and here it's 94, 0.94. So what that means is that for every dollar of marketing spent, the revenue goes up by 94 cents. So that's even less than by $1. So basically you're losing money. Let's not forget that this is revenue, this is not profit. So basically a marketing spend is going to come out as an expense from revenue if we talk about financial terms. But the main point here is that this coefficient is less than 1, meaning that for every dollar that you invest into marketing with in this cluster, you're only, according to this model, you're only getting back 94 cents of revenue. Whereas for the orange cluster, you're getting back $7.32. For every dollar invested into marketing, the predicted revenue input or increase in revenue is $7.32. For the blue cluster, every dollar spent on marketing increases revenue by $3.17. So that is a very, very powerful insight. And I'll explain exactly why right now. So this insight is so useful to us because let's have a look at these expansions that have been created. So if I select new here, first of all, you can see that so many lines are being drawn right now. And that is simply because Tableau is recreating these trend lines for the highlighted features. So to switch that off, we'll just click on one of these trend lines. We'll click edit trend lines, and at the bottom, we'll just uncheck show recalculated line for highlighted or selected data points. Click OK. And now it won't recreate the trend lines for the highlighted data points. So now from the drop down, just select new. And there you can see our points. So you can see that we have one of the new stores was opened, and it is, in terms of proximity and similarity, it is very similar to all these red ones that we already have. So it's been operating for a bit. We already know what the marketing spend is, what revenue it generates, and we can see that, and based also on population, it kind of falls in this category. So from that, we can derive that there's a high likelihood that if we keep investing into marketing, if we add another $1,000 or another $1,000, then not much is going to change, because this trend line is predicting that per every dollar that you add into marketing for this cluster, you're only getting 94 cents of revenue, an increase in revenue. At the same time, we've got 5 stores or 5 cities were opened that are very similar to the blue cluster and 4 that are similar to the yellow cluster. And so the question is, out of these 10, which ones would you recommend the CEO to invest money in marketing? So that's the question to you. Maybe pause this video and think about it based on the analysis that we've performed. Which ones would you choose? Obviously, it's not the red one, right? It's not the red one because it's in a very bad situation. Would you choose the blue ones, or would you choose the yellow ones? Let's say, for example, you can only choose 3 cities. Which 3 cities would you choose? Would they be orange ones, or would they be blue ones? And that's a wonderful illustration of the power of clustering and trend lines when you put them together. So if we just forget about the clusters, or even forget about just the trend lines, right? So if you forget about the clusters to start with, so let's for instance, let's remove the trend line. And so our unclick trend line, and then let's remove the cluster. So just from here, you would perhaps pick 1, 2, 3, the top 3, right? Because they're generating the most revenue, these stores. Or you might say these 3 because they're generating a lot of revenue, but at the same time, their marketing spend isn't that high. Now, if you return the clusters, you would probably look at these and you'd say, all right, so the blue cluster is obviously higher, so I would still pick stores from or cities from the blue cluster. But then if you return the trend lines now, you can see that Even though these are great cities, great locations, so if I select this again, you'll see that these are great locations. They're generating a lot of revenue. At the same time, the trend line is forecasting that per every dollar that you add into marketing, you're only getting $3 of revenue increase. Whereas with the orange ones, even though they're right now, they're a bit lower than the blue ones, they're kind of a lower revenue generating area. At the same time, the trend line what it's forecasting is that for every single dollar that you invest into marketing, you're getting back $7.32 of revenue. So obviously from this analysis, it is pretty evident that the best stores or the cities out of these highlighted ones to look at are the orange ones. So if you had to pick 3 stores or you had to prioritize them in a way that you invest your funds into them, then you would put the orange ones in the first place. Of course, there's 4 orange ones, so if you have to pick 3, then you have to do some additional analysis, or the CEO might have some additional knowledge about it. But basically, all of these orange ones, they're in a great position in terms of what the clusters are telling us and in terms of what the trend lines are telling us. So there we go. This is a very powerful analysis that we can perform. As you can see, we refined our clusters using an external data set which we came up with using just domain knowledge and thinking about how this company operates. And based on this, we can make a conclusion for our analysis that the certain stores, the stores that you would want to invest further in, are stores in this orange cluster, simply because the return on investment will be higher. So the increase in revenue per every dollar that we invest into these stores, into marketing in these stores, is expected to be higher according to this model. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, very, very powerful insights, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, happy analyzing.